Welcome to Brand Me. I'm Preston Konrad, and on this show, we'll talk all things branding, from launching a product line to owning your side hustle. We'll talk to the movers, the shakers, the thought leaders. What do you say we finally stop focusing on brands X, Y, and Z and focus on Brand Me? Let's start the show.
I was just one of thousands of employees at this place. And so making your mark and rising up and being recognized as your own personal brand in a space like that, the way that I was able to do that was through specialty.
Hey guys, I am so excited for today's episode. I get to sit down with a good friend of mine and business partner, Mia Hopkey. Mia spent close to a decade working with Spotify and massive media organizations before joining my company as managing partner and head of client services at my agency, Kennett Creative. And she's also my business partner in Preston Konrad Home. And what I think is fantastic about Mia's conversation with me is that it's really about identifying brand me within a bigger organization and then transitioning that to a smaller, cooler startup organization. So for all of you who are at home, who maybe you love your job and you're trying to kind of figure out what your personal brand is within a larger organization, I think you're really going to like this episode. And if you are looking for your next big leap, you're ready to take that leap of faith, I particularly think you will love this chat with Mia Hopkey. So without further ado, here's Mia. Mia, hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I mean, we have to take the elephant out of the room. I've been on Zoom with you for a couple hours today. Let's be honest.
I know, it's how are you in the last 3 minutes that we took a break from Zoom calls together?
Exactly. As I said at the top of the show, you are my business partner at Kennett Creative, a boutique creative consulting agency. And I think what's so interesting about your story, I mean, we've been friends for how long? 20 years now?
Yeah.
Can you believe that? We are old.
Yeah. Well, wait. Okay. Because we were 18 when we met.
Yeah.
It was the first day of college. I'll literally never forget it.
Yeah.
And you will be rounding 38 this January 5th, Queen. So yeah, 20 years.
Oh my God. Yeah. 20 years.
years.
But what's interesting is that we've been friends for this many years, and obviously we've been working together professionally for the past few years. But what's interesting about you and why I wanted you on the podcast, even though I talked to you all day and you're a close friend of mine, is that I think there's something really interesting about what you've done to your personal brand, from moving from big brand to boutique and maintaining your personal brand through both and moving over, because you were at how long were you at Spotify and what was your role there?
I was at Spotify for about 8 years. And my role there, I did a few jobs at Spotify. I launched our US sales team and was selling the advertising at Spotify there, and then moved into a global strategy team where I essentially built out the global go-to-market ad strategy for the entertainment industry. So always worked in sales, client service, moving more from transactional to strategic, and did that when I exited there a few years ago and started working with Kennett. So yeah.
It's crazy because I think a lot of people that listen to this show aren't necessarily people like me or you, or maybe they're not solopreneurs, or maybe they don't have a side hustle, or they don't have a startup. They work for a job that they really love, right? And I think one thing that's important that I want to take away from this show is that your personal brand, you already have a personal brand, even if you do work a 9-to-5 job that you may love, right? And your personal brand is something that, given obviously the internet, and that a simple Google search will reveal your personal brand, what the internet says about you, right? It's already there. You have the power to control it.
Yeah.
But you have, it's kind of, you've built your personal brand. I would say you kind of iced it at Spotify, right? And you've brought it over to my business. But what was it like building your brand of Mia, the brand of Mia within a big brand like Spotify? Was that easy? And what was the brand of Mia at Spotify? And does it differ than where you are now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, it's you don't have to have a product or a service that you sell that is branded to have a brand and be a brand. And I think that anybody that has crossed my path professionally would probably agree that there is a brand of Mia. I think it was something that, like you said, it really kind of I really refined it at my time at Spotify and obviously brought a lot of it over to Kennett. But for me, I think it's always been about, I love working in client service. I love working with people. I'm an extrovert. I'm cheerleader. You don't say. I don't need a recharge. I'll recharge when I sleep, and I can just always with people go, go, go. But I would say that like my brand is definitely one that is incredibly positive. Cheerleader is something that like I have been called by so many people at so many different points in my career at all different levels of an organization. I'm definitely like a problem solver. I'm always thinking of, okay, how can I take responsibility for something here, even if I'm literally the person that is on the lowest of the rungs of like responsible for this certain thing? How can I take responsibility here? How can I move this forward? I would say that also like I'm a connector. I don't like gatekeep things. I'm not interested in gatekeeping. I think that my value actually comes from connecting people. So I guess the way to put this is like, I don't take myself too seriously. Like I love cracking a joke at myself.
I was going to say, you haven't said fun yet.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of your personal brand.
Cheerleader, positive, problem solver, I think is really like the core of my brand. And then I think there's kind of like this tertiary, kind of almost like the halo. What's the planet with the rings? Saturn, Venus? I don't know. I'm obviously not
You're asking the wrong guy.
Okay,
I don't even know about my
Google's
astrology
planet
sign,
with the rings. You can like put it in the captions or whatever.
Saturn, right?
Yeah. Saturn, Saturn has the rings.
Yeah.
So like there's like the Saturn and then there's like my rings. And I think that also like a big part of my rings is what was developed later on in my career as I grew in my personal life. And I think that my eyes opened up to it is actually important to not just be all about your profession, and that the way that you can be of value to your colleagues around you and not just to your clients or your, external partners is by bringing, what you're comfortable with of your whole self into work. And for me, that was about being a mom. That was about, crazy manicures and bright colors and always getting dressed up. And, I was this like whole sweatpants and like the home office thing has been like hard for me. I'm wearing jeans right now. Right. I mean, I'm always somebody who's like, I'm dressed up. I love crazy makeup and big hair and wild nails and my kids, you'll see pictures of my kids and really bringing all of that so that when I'm notorious for like meeting a client and like following them on Instagram and like adding them, in social media. Like I love to bring that entirety of myself to work. Because again, I'm like an extrovert and I'm a Cancer. So I like want everybody to love me and I like want to always do for other people. So that's like my brand. It's positive. It's fun. It's uplifting. It's cheerful. It's bright. It's problem solving. It's connecting people. I'm always trying to, I have a guy that can do that. Like, let me get you to them. And so that's, that is what I think like the brand of Mia is. I would love to like survey like the people I've worked with in the past and be like true or false.
I was going to ask you how much of your personal brand as a professional, as an executive connects to your personal life, but I think you just answered it really well because it's like hearing it from you, it makes so much sense. Like the elements I know of your personal life as personal Mia friend, mom, whatever, comes into your work life so well. I mean, where, by the way, you could do your little survey and this is on my list to talk to you about is you could do it on LinkedIn. And I feel like of everyone I know who is a brand of themselves within a brand, and everyone is their own brand, you utilize LinkedIn so well.
Yeah.
What do you feel like LinkedIn as a personal brand, because you're not on there, you're not like those people that just promote products and promote their work and promote, I think you use it to your personal brand's advantage. What can people learn, or what are some like key things from LinkedIn not as an employee, but as personal brand Bob, Joe, Mia? That LinkedIn could bring to them? Because I think it's an untapped resource. Yeah,
that's a great question. So I like love LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn on my phone. I use LinkedIn on my computer. It's one of the social networks that I check frequently. I am not somebody that posts a ton on LinkedIn. I think I went through like a phase when I was working specific to the entertainment industry where I would share a lot of industry news there. There was actually this one woman, she worked at a couple different studios that I would follow on LinkedIn. And what I loved about her, and I said this to her, I said, Kelly, you're a newsfeed. Like I just go to your page and I know what's going on in the industry, like that. And I always feel like that was like Kelly's thing, was like she was always posting the news of the industry. And that was like how she showed up on LinkedIn. I think for me, I'm very, I'm like an engager. I like to like and comment on other people's posts. And then there's like,
you're active.
Yeah, I'm very active like that. And I'm also like a sleuther. So I love to like go into a company, see who works where, see who I know who is where. An old colleague of mine just announced that he started at a new company today. And I was like, why do I know that name of that company? It's not like a consumer facing name really at all. And sure enough, I clicked in and I was like, oh, I know that name because I congratulated so-and-so when they started their job there.
Amazing.
So I just, I think it's a good client service person is with you regardless of where they are working, right? And regardless of whether you are actually their client service person or not. These are relationships that I forge with people. I text with people that I hadn't called on in years. And LinkedIn is a place where I'm able to do that and follow their career path. Instagram is a place where I do that and I see their baby pictures. Text message is a place where I do it, where I, share TikTok videos with them. I'm a relationships person. I've always been a relationships person. And I think also, the details, right? My mom always said this, she goes, God is in the details. And it's just the little things like knowing somebody's coffee order and bringing it, marking somebody's birthday when you see it somewhere in a calendar and being the person to say happy birthday to them that next year.
That's so brand Mia. That is brand Mia to a T.
Yeah.
It's thoughtful.
Those are the types of things, that, I haven't checked on Facebook in years, like when people have said happy birthday to me.
Well, no, because it's like you'd have to go down like a QAnon hole first. And then before you get, exactly.
But like, it's just like a little text message of, that kind of stuff. And those are the little details that I hang on to because I think they're so special. And I think it's what makes a relationship special. And I feel like that's very much a part of my brand, of who I am and how I put myself forward in the workplace for sure. In my personal life, I could probably use a little bit more of that, but.
Well, your personal brand, I know it's a major asset to my business. And tell me a bit about, because I think you're similar to me, where I was corporate queen 101. I was the master of Madison Avenue, and I thought I was going to be brought out of there in a body bag and that I would never start my own thing, go out on a limb, do that kind of thing. But my personal brand, the brand of Preston, really actually was built for what I'm doing now and not built for being a brand within a brand. So how do you feel, how does brand Mia fit into this new world of hustle, solopreneurship, maybe some more eccentric working hours, maybe more life on a plane, maybe more time zones? How was it at Spotify? How is it different now? And what was that transition like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll start with how it's really different, which was like at Spotify, at iHeart, at I worked at enormous media companies. And some of them were very mature at the time I was there. Some of them were in this kind of hyper growth mode. But I believed in the mission of the company and the mission of the product, but it's like, I was just one of like thousands of employees at this place. And so making your mark and rising up and being recognized as like your own personal brand in a space like that, the way that I was able to do that was through specialty, was through aligning myself as a specialist in a certain industry. So for me, that was the entertainment industry. I was the entertainment person, when I was at Spotify, and that was my brand. But something that a great leader at Spotify said to me about herself that I was like, oh my gosh, that's me, is she said, I don't need to be the number one. I like being the number two. And it was this moment of, I think, like self-realization, in this kind of like toxic girl boss culture that like, we've all like lived in for the past few years, and like the importance of climbing the corporate ladder. And I think we can have a larger discussion around like what's happening with like the corporate exodus now, but that like, to hear that it's like, I don't need to be the number one. I need to be the number two. And she was very high up, very, very high up at this company.
I remember you told this to me once and I was like, that's such a strange way of thinking. Like, but it makes so much sense.
Yeah. And so I think that like because I am the cheerleader, right? I am not the quarterback. I am the cheerleader. Like I love being the one that is the support. Like I feel like I shine when I'm like holding that person up and they're shining. That's like the best, most exciting success for me, is like seeing the people around me that I work with every day succeed and win. And so when I made the transition to Kennett and to working not only with our creative agency, but with the home brand, that I felt very much like this was an excellent way for me to channel that piece of myself, which is being the number two, being the right hand, being the other part of somebody's brain. And I think it's part of the reason why our dynamic and why the business has accelerated the way that it has since I came on, is because I need it to be Preston Konrad Home. I need it to be Kennett Creative. I don't need it to have my name on the marquee. I love being the one that like is working behind the scenes, helping make it happen. And so I think that's a big piece of like how my brand translated through. It's really different now in that I am a generalist more so than a specialist, right? So like in a big company,
it's pushed you in a lot of ways.
100%. In a big company, I was, my brand was able to kind of rise to the top because of picking a niche and niching down. And now I feel like the brand of Mia is able to shine within our companies and within our universe and our ecosystem, because I'm able to kind of almost like thin out a little bit and try different things and figure out like, oh, okay, I'm really good at this and I'm going to keep doing this. Or like, hey, I tried this, I'm not good at this. And so like, you're going to keep doing this, or we're going to hire somebody to do this, or we're going to pass this on to somebody else that works on the team. And so I think that if that's like a long, short way to answer the question.
No, it's a really good answer. I think what's really interesting is that I feel that you were ready to leave. Brand Mia was ready to leave big brand to come to boutique because that brand of you was already fully baked, right?
Yeah.
And so it was fully baked and ready. Like the cake was out of the oven and it wasn't still wet and doughy and moldable. What advice? I think there's a lot of people that are probably in the boat that you were in a couple of years ago, where it's like, I'm a fully baked fucking cake and I'm doing really well in this bakery, and it's a great bakery and I love it, but I might be better in a cooler, smaller bakery, right? So how do you move that? Like, what advice would you give for someone who is a fully branded individual who has figured it out? They know their values as a personal brand within an organization, and they want to move to something smaller, nimble, cooler, maybe like what we're doing. Any major takeaways or some like advice you could give?
That's a great question. Part of me feels like it's hard, right? It's really hard because there was a part of me that would have stayed at, and the big brands forever. That was me at Ralph. I was like, I'll die. Yeah, here. Exactly. They will have my funeral when they find me dead at my dad's.
Yeah.
I feel like, part of me like craved like the stability and like, even in some ways like the sameness. I like that. But I think that sometimes there's just like a little sound in your head or like a little rumble in like your stomach or this like little twang in your heart that you just like, you don't know like what it is. And sometimes something happens that like, it just pushes you. I didn't take that first step. Like I was pushed. And I think that the minute that I felt myself moving, I just knew. I was like, just do it and don't look back and just keep doing it. And like, don't worry. I think that's really hard. Like when you have a family, right? Like taking a risk when money is like a really serious thing. And like, I just think that if you want to do it, somebody once said, it's like, you'll never look back on your life wishing like, oh, I wish I spent more time at work. I wish I spent more time trying to, go up the corporate ladder and not pursue passions and dreams. I think everybody has like their own situations and their own like responsibilities and circumstance. But what I would say to somebody who is feeling that they are ready for a change is sometimes the change doesn't look like what you think it's going to look like. And sometimes the change happens before you think you're ready for it, or you're waiting and it's not happening and you're like, what's going on? But try new things and think about how the things that you do now and the skills that you have now translate, because 90% of what I do every day with you is completely different than what I did. But I use the same tools. I'm just like, I'm painting a different picture, right?
And brand Mia's the same. See, I think that's what's interesting. I think what a lot of people think is I could never go to that kind of environment because Mia's a brand, they may not be calling it their personal brand, but they say, I don't know if I have the right sensibilities. I don't know if the right personality. It's really like a brand fit within a brand. I think that's like the one thing that I knew about you. I'm like, her brand's right for my brand.
Yeah. I look at the core,
right.
Like for what my brand is, right? Like that being fun, being positive, being a problem solver, being, cheerful and colorful and inclusive and easily excitable. Like that's, I want to be the kind of energy that I want to have around. And so that you can plug into a lot of different places, right? Like it's your brand will carry, don't put limits on yourself. Don't let other people put limits on you either. But like the world is a really big place and there's like a lot of real, like your brand can express itself in ways that you still can never dream of. That's what I love about working with you is that it's like, I'm a strategic thinker. I'm a methodical thinker, but I am not a big enough thinker. Like you think so big.
Well, I'm just also crazy. I'm like, we're going to do this.
I love that. Like when somebody says to me, we're going to do this crazy thing, my brand goes like, okay, right. We're going to do this crazy thing. So how do we need to get this? Like if somebody tells me we're doing this, I'm like, cool, we're doing it. How are we going to get it done? But I don't
get information.
Exactly.
Yep.
I don't think big enough. I'll be the first one to say it. It's like my biggest fatal flaw is like, I don't think big enough. But if there's somebody in the room that is thinking that big, I'm like, yes, that is what is. And we are going to make it happen. That.
Did you ever feel that brand Mia was stifled working for a massive brand?
No, I think that I spent my mid 20s to mid 30s working in two really big corporations. Even when I joined Spotify, there were thousands of people there, not in America, but it was a company that had thousands of people working for it. Maybe 1,000, which is still huge compared to us, right? So
totally,
compared to a lot of companies. I don't think that I was ever stifled there. I think that where I actually felt stifled was expressing myself creatively in other ways, like because I worked in sales and not like all the creativity that I had. And maybe it was myself, right? Maybe I was stifling myself. I was like, this is corporate. And like, it's like, like our boomer parents, like what they taught us about like working a corporate job and like wearing a suit and shit. Like it's so, can I curse? Sorry. I don't know if I can curse.
Yeah. We swear on this podcast.
Like, that's also my brand. Like I have a toilet mouth and I'm like notorious for like dropping an F-bomb in a meeting and then being like, oh God, does this client curse? But anyway, so I feel like I stifled myself in terms of like expressing my creativity, and wearing the things I wanted to wear and doing my nails the way I wanted to do them. And, I do think that like sometimes visually being so out there can like actually hinder you getting the point across that you want to get across. And so I do think it's important to like read the room, know the scenario that you're going into, kind of thing. But, no, I don't, the long and the short of it is I don't think that working for a big brand stifled the brand of Mia. But I also think that is because part of the brand of Mia is being support and not aiming to be a star, right?
Exactly. You knew where you fit into the puzzle and that you were a cog in a wheel, but you're a very important cog in the system.
But I like being part of a system. I like being part of a team. I like a group think. Like I don't, if there is no leader, I'm like, cool, I'll be the leader, but I don't come into a situation saying like, I need to be the leader. I feel like I drive the most value in being the support system, right?
Yeah.
So
I love that. There's a quote when you were talking about fun. I just found it. I'm going to bring it up. And it's from the co-founder of Southwest Airlines. And I saved it in my Instagram, even though Southwest can't get their shit together.
Southwest,
apparently.
yeah.
I've never flown Southwest, but I've saved this quote in my Instagram.
Delta for life.
Yeah, Delta for life. If anyone from Delta is listening, you've got
you
two
can sponsor
loyal,
this podcast, Delta Platinum.
triple, quadruple, platinum, whatever the hell we are. But the quote reads, I've always felt there's no reason that work has to be suffused with seriousness. Fun is a stimulant to people. They enjoy their work more and work more productively. And I feel, and I've saved it because I feel like it's very what you're just talking about. It's very about my personal brand. It's very how I run both of my businesses that way. So I just thought it was fun. I wanted to get it in there. But I have a question for you. So you now, in your new job, working with me, probably get to work and see and engage with more consumer-facing brands than you probably ever did before, because you're working with media ventures and media companies, entertainment companies before. Is there a brand memory? It could be a brand we've worked with or a brand that is nostalgic to you that for some reason lives rent-free in your head?
Yes. Okay.
From years ago?
Yeah. So I would say that it's not even a brand that I engage with or purchase their products a lot now.
Yep.
But so for context, I grew up on Long Island, right outside of New York, and there is in a predominantly Jewish neighborhood, and all of the girls, we all dressed the same, and everybody had the same jeans and the same sweatsuits. And so the same purses, there was a lot of keeping up with the Joneses in this kind of environment.
Well, it was the era of 90s, 2000s, everyone had to shop at the same places.
Exactly. There was no individuality when it came to your clothing. But even I want to say it was maybe elementary school aged, where it was Gap had these sweatsuits, right? And for gym, you would wear your gym clothes on. We didn't have locker rooms in elementary school. So you would wear your gym clothes underneath these sweatsuits. And then you would take off your sweatsuit and you'd have your gym clothes and you'd put your sweatsuit back on for the day for the one day of the week that you had gym. And I just remember I wanted my sweatsuit to be from the Gap. I had to have the navy blue. They probably still make the exact same sweatsuit today, except
the logo one.
Yes, it just says Gap, and it's navy blue crew neck and a tapered sweatpant. And that to me was just the first, maybe I remember the brand at McDonald's, but a brand feeling important to me. And I think that carried through in the early 2000s when Gap had, I don't know who was doing their creative, but they just had this string of fantastic ads.
I don't think it was Larry.
Okay,
Burns.
but remember the Aerosmith one where it was just Steven Tyler and he was scatting. He was ba 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 ba. Because that's not going to be great for the audio, but I'll find the video and I'll send it to you. And then it was on the same era where they had the striped scarves and the Love Train. And so Gap, I really.
People all over the world.
That was a big one for me. Gap was a brand that I remember in childhood, being important, and then growing up, remember those ads feeling really special to me.
It kept a place in your ethos, in your brand footprint. That's awesome. It's funny. Well, I obviously have the same connection with Gap because I used to work for Gap a long time ago. Now I asked that question because just what you said, you're I don't engage with this brand much, but for some reason it left a memory, left a print in your memory. And I think Gap is such a good answer. It's iconic. My last question, since we're running out of time, is one that I love to ask, which is there a branding failure from your past, personal brand failure, that in retrospect actually turned out to be such a brand blessing for brand Mia?
Oh, okay. Is there a brand failure that turned out to be a brand blessing? Yeah, again, I'm going to say I think it was about me, and it was necessary at the time, but I think at the end of the day, it ended up holding me back, or it's not, it evolved my brand into what it is now, which is, being too specialized. Like part of my brand was like being this like entertainment, or I thought part of my brand was being this entertainment specialist. And like, don't get me wrong, I loved it and it helped me succeed immensely in that company. But it became so much about like how I identified my brand when what I realized when I moved into this role at this company and like further examine like what does it mean to be the brand of Mia, that was just one piece of it that actually it was like one of the rings of Saturn. Like it was just happening at the time, but like at the core, that was something that was completely replaceable, and that the real brand of Mia could exist in other places, in other spaces, and be just as strong. I think at that particular company, that's where I held the most value, but I love to like dive in to things like that, right? Like I love to, work in a certain industry and understand and get a mastery of something. And so I think that was like, something that I think was holding me back more so mentally. Cause I definitely like, I progressed immensely doing that, but I think mentally it held me back. And I think that I have more confidence in myself as a brand in the way that I look at my brand now versus the way that I looked at my brand then. By feeling okay that it's like, hey, I don't have to have this specialty in this industry to be valuable. And I don't have to continue to do this one thing, because all the other pieces of my brand are things that like translate into so many other arenas. Like right now, I think one of the strongest parts of my brand and what I bring to the table is that I speak a very specific language between creatives and clients, right? Being able to be the person that helps reel in the client feedback, help the client understand this is a yes, this is a no, this is a stop, this is a go, and translate that back to our art department, our graphic designers, our copywriters, our creative team because that's like, it's precious when you make art, like it's special and it feels like an extension of you. And I am removed. It's personal.
Yeah.
I'm more removed from that. But because I do feel like I do have all this creative expression, like I get it. So it's like, I don't want you to tell me my outfit's ugly, but like, if you're telling me it's not the outfit that we're going to wear here, like, okay, I get it. And so that I feel like for me is just like something that has transcended. And it's like, now that's kind of like my specialty is like, I am a conduit between creative and client. And it's a very specific language that not a lot of people speak, even when they have years in client service. And so that's kind of like my specialty now, my special sauce now, and what makes my brand a bit different now.
Better go back to that LinkedIn page and add all these new skills. So good. I mean, by the way, you have earned a return invite on this podcast.
No.
So good. This could be an hour-long special, but we just hit our mark.
You know what? I think 30 minutes of me talking is enough.
I think it was amazing. I think what's amazing about this chat with you is that so many people, wherever they may live, love their job and don't realize that they have brand me in them. And I think you were able to really extract a lot of things that people could say, oh my God, that's like my brand. That's like my brand. And maybe I am ready for the next thing. So I think this was an insanely invaluable conversation.
Thank you.
Mia.
Yeah. I think if somebody's like trying to figure out like what their brand is as an employee, right? As a member of the workforce, and they're
do a Google search.
Exactly. That, think of your personality, think of your skill set, and try and really remove yourself from like a specific industry and think about those things and think about the compliments that you've received in the past, right? From other coworkers or clients or vendors or whatever it might be. And think about how you can hone in on those things and polish those things and develop your brand.
Oh my God. What an amazing conversation. Mia Hopkey, thank you. I know you've probably got to go be a mom, but next episode, we'll talk about brand mom when I have you back, because that's a whole nother episode in itself. You're killing it. Thank you for joining the podcast.
Thanks.
I'll see you on Zoom.
Bye.
Bye. For more on the show, you can find us on Instagram at Brand Me Podcast or at Preston Konrad. Be sure, of course, to rate, review, and subscribe and share on social. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week.